Hey guys, today I'm going to be going over the difference between inbound, outbound leads, the difference between them, the pros and cons of both, and where you typically obtain both types. So let's get into it. All right. So let's get into it. Start with inbound leads here. I got my script pulled up here. Got the call notes. So let's get on into it here. So essentially, an inbound lead is whenever someone reaches out to a company interested in buying. So a good example is when you walk into a store. You've never considered yourself an inbound lead before, but that's what you are. You walk by a store, oh yeah, look at those shoes or whatever, right? And then you walk on in, and the clerk greets you, starts to ask questions. That's the salesperson. You're the lead. That's essentially a very common example of this. Or another example is whenever you would call a company or fill out a form online, right, to buy a digital product or an online product, right? All examples of inbound leads. Now, let's take this from the perspective of a salesperson. Obviously, the pros of an inbound lead is they're already interested. They've already expressed interest. They walked into the shoe store probably because they're interested in buying shoes at some point, right? Which means that they are much more likely to close. They're much easier to close than an outbound lead, which we'll get into in a second here. Now, of course, the downsides of inbound leads is that they are inconsistent. Um, you don't always know when the next call is going to come in, right? Someone interested, someone calling the company wanting to sign up, right, or what have you. Also, in general, as well, taken from a sales perspective, if your job is to simply call and sign up inbound leads, you will always make much less money because the value that you're adding to the company is less. So let's talk a little bit more about this. Essentially, there's three parts of any business, right? There's the operations, that's actually fulfilling the business, whatever it is, a shoe store, actually having the shoes, right? There's the sales, the people who are actually talking to the customer, signing them up, right? Taking their money, all that type of stuff. And then there's the marketing. The marketing is getting people in the door. The more of that pie which you do, the more value you're adding. So when you are simply signing up, essentially taking the money from an inbound lead, you are just doing one part of that pie. You're just doing the sales part of it, right? Now, let's say when you get into let's say you actually went out and found the client. Like a cold call, which I'm going to get into in a second here. What are you doing? You're actually doing two of those parts. You're actually doing the marketing and you're doing the sales aspect. You're basically doubling the value that you're providing, which essentially is why there's something to look for in positions. If it's only inbound lead based, it's going to be easier, but you'll probably make less money. Hey guys, and if you do want to learn how to optimize your sales process, smash quotas, and all other sales related stuff, please subscribe down below. Thank you. Okay, so we just talked about inbound, so let's talk about outbound. So what's the difference? Well, you probably guessed based off what I was saying earlier. An outbound is when a salesperson reaches out to a potential customer, seeing if they might be interested in buying. Good examples of this would be the old-fashioned cold call, door-to-door salesman, right? Or digitally, you could say cold email or LinkedIn. These are all forms of outbound leads or outbound marketing, right? Now, where do referrals fall into this? Let's say a referral calls you from a previous customer. I consider that an outbound lead. Why? Because, as I was describing before, you are performing the marketing aspect for the business and you're providing the sales aspect for the business. The company, with their blog or with their podcast or whatever, is not doing that work for you. You, the sales agent, created that value. So that's, in my book, referrals should be considered the same as an outbound. And if there is some companies will actually have a different pay structure based on the two, right? And so make sure that they're being considered the same because as an outbound, because the value is the same, right? So what are some of the pros and the cons? Well, as you might imagine, the biggest downside of an outbound lead is they're much harder to get. Much harder to get, much harder to close. They take a lot more work. Cold calling someone and getting them to sign up is a heck of a lot harder than someone who went to your website and filled out a form and said, call me back. But as I said too, the upside is that they are much more valuable. One is you as a sales agent. If you get good at doing outbound leads, outbound sales, you should have a uncapped earning potential. And what that also means is that if you're good at it, you are extremely valuable to the company as well. Basically irreplaceable if you're good at doing outbound leads, to where they can always train another guy to just call the inbound leads. It doesn't really take that much skill to do so. So I hope that's helpful, guys. If you have any questions, please drop a comment down below. And that's it for me.